Last Sunday, President Trump signed a big, important piece of paper, an executive order aimed at lowering drug prices in America. This has been a hot topic for a while now. Trump tried to fix this in 2020. Americans are less than 5% of the world's population, and yet 75% of all global pharmaceutical profits come from American wallets. In 2021, we spent $121 billion alone. In other words, U.S. citizens are bearing the costs of the world's medicines, while other countries pay drastically less. The president's new order is supposed to fix that, but how? Let's dive in. The order focuses on a World Trade Organization (WTO) policy called Most Favored Nation pricing. It's a fancy way of saying that drug companies can't charge the U.S. more for a drug than they charge other similar countries. Sounds fair, right? For example, you pay $500 for a cell phone here, but in Canada the same phone costs only $50. This executive order mainly affects Medicare and Medicaid programs, which taxpayers fund so seniors, Medicare, and low-income, Medicaid, people can afford expensive life-saving drugs. But why must we assume all drugs from Big Pharma are expensive? Democrats and liberal groups simply say that it is to pad big CEO pockets and support their lavish lifestyles. What you didn't know is that nations like Canada, Japan, and Europe negotiate prices. As members of the World Trade Organization, they gain a favored nation status when it comes to trade. So what does most favored nation actually mean? The Most Favored Nation clause requires a country to extend the same trade terms to all trading partners. However, when it comes to prescription drugs, the U.S. gets the short end of the stick. Americans, who unwittingly sponsor both drug manufacturers and other countries. These entities today rely on high price markups on American consumers, generous public subsidies for research and development primarily through grants by the National Institutes of Health, and robust public financing of prescription drug consumption through federal and state healthcare programs. Drug manufacturers agree to other countries' demands for low prices, and object against the ability for people of the United States to negotiate the best prices for medicines. The inflated prices in the United States fuel global innovation, while foreign socialized healthcare systems get a pass. So how can Trump enforce this order? The massive purchasing power of Medicare and Medicaid, which alone buys 4.8 billion drugs a year, the U.S. can force drug companies to offer them the same low prices they give to other wealthy nations. The bulk purchasing power alone of these programs cries out for fair pricing in economics. Instead, we pay the highest price per product when we should be paying the least. Imagine purchasing 75% of the world's donuts and paying $10 per donut, while everyone else only pays 75 cents per donut. Of course, Big Pharma isn't exactly thrilled about this. They argue that if prices were slashed, it would result in a $100 billion loss per year. In other words, the industry admitted they overcharge America $100 billion annually. They claim they need those big American dollars to fund research and development for new drugs, but critics argue other industries with large R&D budgets do not have such pricing disparities. Electric cars, iPhones cost roughly the same wherever you live. Let's talk numbers, shall we? The price differences for some common medications are truly shocking. Take Ozempic, a popular diabetes drug, for example. In the US, a month's supply will set you back a whopping $1,300. But hop across the pond to London, and you can get the same medication for a mere $88. It's enough to make you want to book a flight just to refill your prescription. And it gets worse. Jardiance, a diabetes medication, costs an average of $611 per month in the US. Meanwhile, folks in Switzerland are paying just $70 for the same thing, and in Japan, it's a measly $35. Even insulin, a life-saving drug for people with diabetes, costs 10 times more in the US compared to Canada. These price disparities are a major source of frustration and financial strain for millions of Americans. Many are forced to ration their medication, skip doses, or even go without altogether, putting their health at risk. So, will this executive order finally bring us affordable medications? Well, it's complicated. The pharmaceutical industry is a powerful force, and they've already started pushing back. They're challenging the order in court, arguing that it's unconstitutional and will stifle innovation. Plus, the order has its critics, such as government intervention. The principle of government involved in price fixing is used whenever a natural disaster crops up. Governors or attorney generals issue a PSA that is looking out for price gouging or entities taking advantage of a situation, like charging $10 a gallon of gas on a region that has no operable gas stations. What is puzzling here is that Americans are being price gouged so other countries can reap the discounts. Democrats want drug companies to eat losses by capping the prices they can charge and fixing them to a ceiling. Trump simply wants to level the playing field by everyone paying a fair price for drugs, thereby in effect lowering the cost burden to Americans. Price fixing is what leads to shortages. If companies are not incentivized by profit, they won't produce medications. Fair trade policies, meaning all countries pay the same for a drug, maintains that profit motive. The courts already have hissed at Trump's attempts in the past. However, the public is aware how unfair things are, and with the daily unfolding of public corruption and financial waste exposed by DOJ, the swamp may have to concede some ground again. One thing's for sure, it's sparked a much-needed conversation about the high cost of healthcare in America and the need for real reform. The fight for affordable medication is far from over, but at least it seems like someone's finally listening.